Yes.
Not get up on stage and talk to people.
I think every now and then your job is to have me yell at you and you yell back at me.
Yeah, that's part of it.
So,
You want to do that live on
that's why we're about the same size, right? It's a fair fight.
Yeah, we're hot, right?
We've been hot for a while.
Yeah.
I'm always on.
Hey guys, welcome back. BitsBeTrippin. We're out in an undisclosed location. We might get into where we're at, but we are out at DMG's location, and we're going through to show you guys what Bitcoin mining is at scale at an enterprise level. We get a lot of questions. People see our setup, and it's very small when it comes to this kind of thing of like, hey, I just want to buy a whole bunch of stuff and put it in a big room and see if I can mine some Bitcoin. But at scale, it does a little, it's a lot different. And one of the reasons why we were out here is to kind of get an understanding of what it takes to get to that level and just the time that's invested in it and the folks that are involved in it. And there's a lot more than just, plugging in hardware. And, we're going to get into some of that. We're going to talk where, how DMG's kind of came around, talk to some of the folks. This wasn't just going to be an interview with one person. It's going to be the group. And as we let this go very fluid, we have some stuff written down just to make sure we have some kind of coordination and annotated outline to follow.
Micro agenda.
Yeah, a micro agenda, because we can get really loose when this is real open. So this is super casual. So if you're tuning in right now, just understand it's going to be super casual. We'll make sure that's cut to where it's still cohesive. But let's get into this.
It'll still be PG rated, right?
It can go. It's YouTube, so we'll let it flow. I think we'll say how it goes. This is a partial BitsBeTrippin episode, so there is a little bit of thing there.
Ooh, yeah. Had we known.
Yeah, well,
get your drink orders in now.
Yeah, in the middle there might be some drinks being refilled as we recharge to answer a few more questions. And some questions may slide to the end until a few more drinks are down. But I was going to just get right into it. And it comes down to, if folks don't know, let's talk first with Sheldon, and you guys can jump in. What's the first question? Make sure.
Actually, the first question I wrote for you.
Oh, you did? Let's do it that way.
So just
spin it around.
Let's start flip it around. So I'm Sheldon Bennett. I'm CEO of DMG. Just for those of you who don't know us. We're a smaller company, I guess, in the world of crypto from the point of view that, we're not a billion-dollar company. Maybe we will be after this. We'll find out.
Yeah.
And I have David and Adrian with me as well. They'll talk about themselves in a little bit. Some of you may remember that we had a little bit of a talk at Miner Summit in the Ozarks. So that was the first time you and I actually met. And I think we talked about a contentious item. Maybe I won't repeat what it was. People can go back a few episodes and find it.
Yeah.
We'll get into that one today. But you were here. You were in Blackbox 2 days ago.
Yes,
and you
awesome.
went by our new office that we just bought and our testing facility and our repair facility that we're building out. And then you got in a truck. And you drove for hours and hours and hours.
I think it was 7.5.
7.5
Yeah.
hours.
A lot of hours through the flooded province of British Columbia that had a natural disaster. You made it up. You came up to our facility. I toured you around. I think there's already some stuff you put on Twitter with my arms flaring about, but nobody could hear what I was saying.
Yep.
But our question is, you are
loud.
Yeah, you are, kind of come from more of a GPU background.
Absolutely.
You do a lot on GPUs. You're getting more into ASICs. You went into an ASIC mine.
Yes.
I don't think we showed you a GPU there. And we do some GPU mining, but it's not happening right now. Mm-hmm. And they're back in the corner somewhere. And I think our question is, what did you think? It's a different world from our point of view than GPU mining. Mm-hmm. We find GPUs to need a lot of TLC, and you need to sing to them and say nice things and keep them happy to work. ASICs, we find they're just brute force. They love to work, they like power, and they do lots of great things.
Yes.
So tell us, what did you think seeing an industrial size crypto mine?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to it, and I always look at things kind of holistically. So I look at it, there is a linear, just additional scale, more room, more shelves, more stuff. But you look at just all the folks that it takes to involve at, as you start to go row after row. And as we get a little deeper into that mine, it was like, okay, this is real work. And knowing just with the few racks that we have 8 racks of GPUs in there. We're talking less than a megawatt if we're just talking the GPUs. And I mean, you guys are moving towards 45 megawatts in that.
45 in that building, another 15 outside.
So almost 50x, from a power usage of where we're at. So understanding what we had to do from a power standpoint, just with the 3,000 amp service we had, and just understanding on how to get the power delivery and all of the different components from the step down and all of that we had to go through with that little, amount, to understand that there's a lot more that goes into it than just buying hardware. And we get a lot of questions from people like, oh, I want to put 100 megawatts out there. We have the money, right? And just to understand that it's not just the Bitcoin mining folks. It's not just the folks that have the experience in, plugging in the S19s in this case, and building the shelves and stuff. There's electricians, there's, mechanical engineers, there's actual real science when it comes to the aerodynamics. And understanding how you guys put together your hot and cold lanes and how the exit was happening in the farm itself with that air, understanding that there's a lot more to it. And this is why us doing this kind of thing is like, it's a recipe and ingredient, but you guys know how to cook too with it. And there's a lot of respect that's given. And I think that as we show some of the B-roll with this and just walking through it to understand that all of that engineering, it wasn't just that those walls came up in those distances. There was engineering behind that. And there's iterations that happen to make it to there. And that's what really sets different, groups apart, is understanding that now they're this far. It's an evolution and you're in generation X, right? And so you go through these different evolutions and change. So that's why as we were sitting there going through that and seeing how you guys were walking us through the kind of stages of those areas, I think.
Yeah, I think that when you put it all together, like we did a lot of touring, you got a lot of footage. You made voiceover. I don't know what you do, how you put it all together, but when you talk on the engineering, the airflow. I mean, as you saw, there are no assist fans there. Yeah. It's just wide open air, and it's an engineering feat where we use the actual server fans to pull enough air, and we engineer all the hallways, all the hot channels. We spent a lot of time with data loggers, moving them around, figuring out where are we going to get enough CFM in and out to make it all work. And in doing that, what happens is we don't waste power on ancillary services. All that power goes into actual Bitcoin mining, which is a big thing because we're in the power business. I mean, the business of Bitcoin mining is converting electrons into more expensive electrons. Yes. And that's what we're doing.
Stored energy.
And so we don't want to give any electrons off to cooling and fans and things like that. So it's a lot of engineering, and we took you through a lot of it and explained it to you. And there's, we've done a couple of power studies, we've done harmonic studies, we've done all sorts of phase studies, all sorts of stuff, so that we can build something this big. And building it big is one thing, but making it run continuously and never stopping, never breaking down, breakers never going, that's really, really hard. Yeah. And you know a lot about PDUs and breakers not working.
Absolutely. I mean, just looking at like the way, and you have different iterations of mines, of miners in there, and just seeing how, the density levels that you had to work with, for the S19 is a bigger unit, right? And I know there was a lot of folks that have to deal with that when they bought containers and they were designed around S19s, and now they had to refactor them. They're like, oh my God, that's a bigger unit. So now I can get half of the output that I had. But just having the design that you have in there allows you to be very agile, on, being able to adapt.
We learned early on, and I learned this before I did DMG, that to build off 15 or 20 amp breakers is the wrong way to build. Yep. So don't talk to your household electrician if you want to build a Bitcoin mine. The smallest breaker we have is 150 amps. Yes. So, and that's kind of like the minimum we'll have in our new power channel design, which is going to double the amount of power in the power channel. We're looking at 250 amp breakers. And that's the smallest we have. And with our power channels, as I said before, we talk about line efficiencies and line losses. We break the 3-phase power into single phase 240 right at that receptacle in the power channel. So we're minimizing all our line losses the whole way through. And this is the engineering that if you want to be really good at Bitcoin mining and really efficient in how you do it, you have to really understand all of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see as, we walked outside and we've seen, the input, and the way that was laid out, and the way you had all the transformers set up, and all the way out to the substation, going out to the substation and seeing how you have that, and you're, one of the planning phases, and it wasn't even something we asked. You immediately was like, well, we laid this out with this concept that will crawl, walk, run it, like naturally, where you have that first main transformer in there, but you have the pad board for another one, and you have the capacity, like if you needed to, and that planning, like some folks would, they go in there and it's a very rigid, kind of waterfall kind of design, and then they never plan for expansion, right? They're like, oh well, now we have to rip this fence up and move the whole property back, or we didn't buy enough, and you're.
It's so hard to plan though, because when we decided to go ahead and build that, we had just gone public, we had just done a raise, everybody was like build, and Bitcoin was 20 grand, and then a couple months later, it's what was it, $4,000 or $5,000, right? And so we had planned it with this idea that Bitcoin was going to go forever and be worth everything and take over the world, and we hope it still does. But we also said, well, let's put in 85 megawatt sub. And let's just plan to be able to twin it. And if the world is good and things are well, then we can twin it. If it's not, you know what? For the extra $500 or $1,000 in engineering time to plan a second sub, why not? It was a bit of a planning to do that, and I think it was the right thing to do. And we're thinking about doubling that. We talked about it today about doubling it out. We have 33 acres. We got a lot of room. We've already told you that we're planning on putting solar there as well, another 8 megawatts. So we're planning on doing a lot there. But there's always this idea as a public company is, what if Bitcoin ended tomorrow? What if Canada made it illegal? What would we do? And so we've always kind of looked at this property and our investments and what we're doing as, okay, we're a Bitcoin mining company. Yeah, it's our core business. If something happened, can we survive and keep going? And so this is why we do some GPU stuff as well. Not as much as you do from the sounds of it. But this is also why we looked at the property and we saw that we have a gas line. So we've explored putting in the ability to produce hydrogen. And we've been working with our utility and with the BC government on that. And it's just a way to diversify the revenue from the piece of land that we have. So it's like solar, hydrogen are things we can do. We do Bitcoin, and we want to do a lot more of it.
Yeah, it's creating that kind of that security blanket, not only because it's public company, different investors, but having that kind of due diligence to see what's in the realm of possible, because you do have a lot of infrastructure there. And I mean, it's a good segue because I know a lot of questions come up, especially right now with the whole ESG concern and stuff like this. This is a 100% hydroelectric plant.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's
100%
power.
Yeah.
Right,
We were explaining the dams that are upstream from there on the Kettle River and up through the Columbia River. But 100% hydro, which is great. We're kind of blessed that way. We don't have this ESG narrative that some people are navigating.
Push,
when we were asked about that from investors or from funds that are interested in us, one of their questions is ESG. Tell us about your power source, and we're like, not a whole lot to say. It's hydropower. So I don't know what you want me to say.
Next question.
Next question. What's next?
Box is checked.
It wasn't really on the choice.
Right. Yeah, it was another choice. Like,
that's. I couldn't choose coal. We don't have any.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but you have your mini agenda with your questions. So.
Okay, well, before you get into this, you two are both big talkers. So why don't we give Adrian a chance to introduce himself?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
So
the world's bigger than Sheldon and I right now.
Sometimes. Just sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Right in there? All right.
Yep. As long as you're focused that way, it's good.
Right. I'm Adrian, CTO of DMG. I came on board as employee number 2. I was corrected. I've been saying employee number 1 for a long time, but I was
number
actually
one's
number
okay.
2. Yeah.
So he says, just to clarify, he says number 2. He can say number 1. So when the company was founded, it sounds like we're talking about something else.
Prelude from your introduction.
So let me even before we started, let me back up. I said to Mike, I said, listen, Mike, you're gonna have a problem with me because in every interview I do, I never give a short answer, and I keep talking. So not to cut Adrian off, in some ways he was the first employee.
Yep.
And what he's referring to is that when we founded the company, my wife and I were actively founding the company together, and so. You could argue that she was the first employee or he was the first employee. I would say Adrian's the first employee from the point of view that he was the first, not in my family employee.
There you go. Anyway, so I was brought on to focus on software. So right from day one, my job has been to figure out where does DMG need to be in the software space, because that's what I do for a living.
Yeah, but I'm gonna make sure this here.
All right.
And so there's a lot. You actually have questions on our software in there that we're going to get into. So Adrian's going to answer a lot of questions eventually, but he came in early on because when we started DMG, we weren't interested in being a pure mining company. No, we were very interested in being a pure Bitcoin mining company from the point of view it's a great business, but we really had this vision of being a vertically integrated company. We wanted to have the power, have the Bitcoin mine, have the efficiencies of being a good miner, and then when we make a Bitcoin, we didn't want to stop there and just like, hey, we made a Bitcoin, now we're going to sell it to pay wages, or we're going to stick it on our balance sheet to look valuable. We thought, let's keep working with that Bitcoin in the world of transactions. And so there's a whole world of companies that transact, the FTXs, the Coinbases, the Fidelities, and they have this sort of transactional economy. And just because we make Bitcoin doesn't mean we can't work in the transactional economy. And so Adrian's goal working with us has been to figure out what is it that we are really good at Bitcoin miners that we can then turn around to software programs that we can monetize.
Yep.
And that's really been a focus. And part of that focus is we bought a company early on called Blockseer out of Silicon Valley, and it had a really unique way of analyzing the Bitcoin blockchain and clustering information and labeling information. And we created this Blockseer Explorer and Wallet Score. And Adrian's been working with that along with Helm, which is our mine management software, to get into pools, to get into all sorts of stuff. I mean,
the whole reason we built the Mine Manager is because when I started with DMG, we evaluated the options that were out there at the time. And to run an industrial crypto mine running ASIC miners at the scale that we were aiming to, there was nothing out there.
Yeah.
Like the guys out there that had built the software were thinking 200 units, not 20,000. Yeah. So we had to just think about it from the very beginning, go, well, how do you do this at a much, much larger scale? And so we started writing the software just to run our own mine. But the goal was always to become this vertically integrated crypto miner. Mm-hmm. So it became a product that we now sell to other people.
Yeah, we license it out to other companies, and, I think we're doing pretty good at it. We got some big names that really like our software. We got some smaller people that use it, and I think it's starting to grow. We've never done a marketing kind of push like, hey, come buy our software. It's on sale for $99 for a month. We've never done it. It's always been business to business, word of mouth. And that's kind of, we were talking about this, like, who's DMG? How come we're not known as some of the other bigger companies out there? Well, we're a Vancouver company that kind of shoots above its waist a little bit because we have so much we do. And the software is a big part of what we do besides, the crypto mining that you've seen today.
Yeah. Yep. That's great. Yeah, and that led into some of the questions because one of, of course, we were out there today, and the moment some folks seen it that follow you guys actually came out there on Twitter and was asking questions when it came to, the IP and that. And then,
There's some Twitter questions in here.
Twitter questions.
Twitter's a double-edged sword. Some like us, some don't. Some just like to poke at us a bit.
There's always the same question. Where's your monthly update? What's going on with Terrapool?
Yeah.
But I can't talk about Terrapool yet, right? Yeah. Sheldon, let's just be clear. I can't talk about Terrapool yet?
No, we can talk about Terrapool. I mean, the narrative on Terrapool hasn't changed. Terrapool is a great thing. It's it's a partnership with Argo and DMG. We love Argo. I think we hope they love us. We talk to them all the time. They got a great team.
They wouldn't talk to us as much as they do.
Yeah, they have a great team. Peter's doing a great job. We're so happy he made it to NASDAQ. He did a great job at doing that. He's doing some really good stuff. He's a big ESG person where he's really working on renewable energy. I think he wished he was blessed like we were sometimes with it being in BC. But the whole concept of Terrapool came out of something that we did in Marapool. And we kind of pushed that forward with this idea of renewable energy pools. And, with all the kind of information, I guess, I wouldn't say it's real. I mean, I would question some of the information out there around the opinions. Yeah, the opinions. There's a good one, David. All the different opinions about the use of energy in Bitcoin. Sort of push, the industry to start really rethinking about it. And this is where the Bitcoin Mining Council came out, and Michael Saylor's been a great leader in that. But one thing that, we were doing a pool already, and this idea of doing a pool based on renewable energy as a way to show the market, and any, companies have great governance, that, they have full transparency on the power. and that we would go through and look at the power and make sure that they are using full, renewable energy, or help them get on the path of renewable energy. Because Terrapool is not just I am on, hydropower, I could be on Terrapool. It's more like I'm on hydropower and I have some natural gas that I would like to help, in trying to get off of or wreck off of and work my way towards using my capital in the future to grow in more renewable way. And so this is what Terrapool is about. So, we're not going to just reject you because you have some natural gas in your power. We're going to work with you to try and help you get a mixture that's, going towards over time 100% renewable. And that's the Terrapool goal. Now, where's Terrapool at? So when I say we, Argo and DMG, we have a pool. It does operate. We've been putting hash rate on and off. Once that pool is stable enough that we feel as though third parties can join, and we have a lot of third parties that want to join, it will become public information. They'll be invited in. There's some really interesting things that we're doing with Terrapool, and maybe Adrian can talk a little bit about how we're trying to manage it from a sort of a group kind of point of view.
Well, I think there's a couple of different things. The number one thing is it's built like everything else that we've built since the beginning, in that it's auditable from where it go. Basically, from the moment a miner submits a share into our pool, there's an auditable trail to show how that leads to the Bitcoin that's paid out to every participant in the pool, and we're making that information available to all the participants. Then beyond that, we have the concept of having a governing board for the pool that's made up of the participants, where that board will have their votes based on the amount of hash rate that they actually contribute to the pool. So it's meant to be like good governance, good compliance right from the start.
And the board is also meant to, if they want DMG on the software side of the pool to do something on the pool, we want to know this statistic, or we want to know this information, or we want to be able to see this level of detail. That board will just come to DMG and say, hey, we want this, and we'll do the software work and allow that to happen.
A live testing group.
Yeah. Yep. And so the whole goal is that, miners making a pool better for miners. And this is sort of the idea of, when we made Helm, it was like we made a mining software that, we then license out to other miners, and they give us feedback, and we make a better product. And we're really big on that. So we, when we look at licensing our stuff out, we don't really make money licensing, to be honest. We make money Bitcoin mining. When you look at Bitcoin mining, it's quite profitable right now. But, we look at the licensing of our product as just helping us to build better product.
So yeah, if we go down our list, we're pretty much about halfway down. One of the questions that really set up the Terrapool question that we just went through was, is there other services that DMG does? Like, management software, you guys mine your own pool. I mean, you can get into some of that. Like, what other things besides?
Around it and alluded to. We didn't directly talk.
We didn't really directly. So from an investor,
Start from the top.
Let's try and make it easy. So to make it easy, everybody as a public company and in general, people in this industry understands Bitcoin mining. So we had this really simple idea. Let's just call Bitcoin mining our core business. It's really simple. And then let's call everything that's not Bitcoin mining our core plus business. So it's everything that's not Bitcoin mining. And so that's kind of how we talk about the companies. Like, hey, we have core and core plus. Oh, what's core? Well, core is Bitcoin mining. Well, what's core plus? Everything that's not Bitcoin mining. And so, and what is not Bitcoin mining? Well, we actually, it's goes under a brand called Blockseer that we own and we bought a few years ago. And it's all of our software. So it's like, we have pure Bitcoin mining over here, and we have software over there. We make the Bitcoins over here, and we try to keep making money off them over there. And that's kind of how we see the company, and that's how we talk about the company. So what you saw was core. This is our core business. We take a lot of power, we do a lot of stuff, and we make a lot more money out of the electrons we buy. That's Bitcoin mining in a nutshell. But after we make those Bitcoins, let's try and keep making money on them. And that's where we get into what Adrian's been leading. We try making money on them on the Helm product. We try.
Is Bitcoins plural?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is the plural.
Bitcoin
is the
plural.
So is this the beer and deer
sidebar?
conversation?
Funny question. Funny thing is, one of the very first shirts we made, we had the design, and it was like, I accept Bitcoin, and they actually printed it as I accept Bitcoins, and they're like, and then they sent me saying, hey, we updated your design because why would you just want one? And so they made the executive decision on our print to print shirts with an S on it. And I was like, no, I've never seen it with an S. This isn't the way. Mind you, these shirts were produced in like 2014, so I was kind of on suspect a little too. I was like, well, maybe it's, but no, it was Bitcoin is the plural instant of it.
The plural of Bitcoin is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
So I shouldn't say Bitcoins. It's
No,
wonderful.
you say dollars. Yeah. Anyway,
You say money and monies.
I accept money,
I accept money.
But we
I
but
accept
you
money.
don't accept dollar.
Yeah, no, but you transfer the monies.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
It can be used. It's
I
both.
actually know.
There's
person-
an
I
English.
actually know a legit,
There's an English thing I don't
linguistics
remember.
person that did their
that can do
masters
both.
on the word monies. It's crazy.
You're a liar.
I'm not lying. I'm not lying. Her name is Ina Chef.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she did a master's on the
Anyway,
word monies.
back to our core plus. Sorry.
So, core, yeah. So Bitcoin mining, core business. Bitcoin, everything that's not Bitcoin mining, and the way we try and monetize after Bitcoin's made is Core Plus. In Core Plus, we have Helm, which is our software. We have our pools, Terrapool, the most well-known and up and running. Terrapool coming soon. We have wallets, Breeze and Freeze, that with a partnership with Brain. We did a large investment in Brain. We have Petra, which is a partnership with Zodia and Standard Chartered Bank, where we are giving optionality, how we say it, to people on how they want to move their crypto around. As well, we have an exchange coming out, Layer 2 exchange, with our partnership with Bosonic. We're a large investor in them as well. We have, I don't know if I should say it because we haven't actually announced it yet, but we have we're testing some trading bots that we want to be able to give to our clients to not to sort of make
Like an arbitrage or anything like that.
not so much that way. It's so like we're already running it with some of our coins and testing it, and the idea is that you can put Bitcoin in a wallet instead of trying to lend, borrow against it or do things and leverage it. It just sits there and it kind of makes a few percent every month. It's kind of like an interest rate. And
Like a high interest savings account for Bitcoin.
yeah, and it's really quite safe. And the way the bots trade up and down, they kind of beat the market, but they're not out to beat it by 20, 30%. They're out to beat it by 3, 4, 5%. And so we've been doing this for a while, and we really like
Muzzle top.
that's the Peanut Squad breaking a glass, just so you know.
I wonder if they count the amount of glasses in the Airbnb.
And so, we're looking at this technology as something we add in because the whole idea of what we're trying to do in the Core Plus is if you're a Bitcoin miner, if you get it on Helm, you get on our pool, you get into one of our wallets, you might want to take one of our trading bots to keep your crypto increasing in value, not sort of, a nice little margin every month. You might want to exchange crypto around with us. So we kind of get you in this ecosystem where you feel quite safe. If you're not a crypto miner and you just want a wallet and you want to exchange some crypto around and you want some insurance, we're going to put insurance on the wallets for theft and vandalism, these types of things, so you won't be out when an exchange gets hacked again. You won't be on the hook. We'll have fully insured wallets. And the whole idea is sort of to create an ecosystem that whether you're a miner or you're not a miner, you're just a crypto enthusiast, everything is under one login in one place that you can do. So you don't need to go to Coinbase to do that, or CoinSquare to do that, and BitGo to do this, and somebody else to get the mining pool here, and this and that. You just get one account with Blockseer from DMG. You mine there. You run your mine management through Helm. You trade your coins. You hold your coins. You do what you want, and it just makes it so easy. You don't need 8 different scraps. I have like 3 monitors right now in my office,
3 monitors.
And one is for this, and one's for that account, one's for this account. And I said to Adrian, I said, I get rid of all this. Just make it easy. I want to log in once. I want to pick the products I want, and I want to use them all in one place. And that's been our goal through Core Plus. It's just sort of to have it all in one place.
And it's also all meant to be auditable as well. So the idea is that everything's engineered around the idea that there's an audit trail for everything that you do in our ecosystem, and everything is actually audited by technical and financial auditors.
Explain the importance of auditability, though.
Yeah,
Most
that's
people
important.
listening Don't.
Yeah, if you're not
Actually,
a public
Sheldon's
company,
better to actually explain that. I'm actually going to hand it to Sheldon.
Yeah. So the questions on audibility, like why is that important in a public?
why should you
location?
care as long as you can do your trade, right? So why you care, and the average person may not care, but in the world of public companies, or in the world of companies that are private with like strong governance and strong board and strong management, you care about auditability because, you know, if you don't have this auditability, if you don't have a system that is checked and confirmed on the revenue of your Bitcoin mining, or on the transactional fees of your trade, or on, you know, the different transactions you do and ensuring that all that data is there, you can't get an auditor that can trace that and understand it. Then they won't audit you, or they'll hire somebody else to try and do all this work and charge you as a public company for all this service. It's quite expensive. And so to be able to bring products to the masses and to more and more people, this idea of like SOC compliance is what one, auditors rely on, but other banks and financial institutions rely on it. So if you want to do, you know, bring Bitcoin to a bank or a financial institution, one of the first questions they're going to ask you is, what's your SOC compliance? How can we trust that your software does what it says it's supposed to do? And if they can't trust it, they won't work with it. And that's why auditability is so important. And it's really important for public companies. It's really important for financial institutions. And so we've focused blocks here. You know, when I talk about this core plus, we focus this on safety and security and regulatory compliance. So we want to do everything in a safe way with, you know, insurance and people feeling safe. They can put money there and leave it there. And if something happens, they're covered. Just like if you know, a bank, you know, your bank account has, depending on where you are, you know, $100,000 or $200,000 per account is insured by your state or your government. We want to do the same thing for crypto. And so that we think that's really important to have people with peace of mind working with us. And then on the compliance side, we're trying to build all of our products that meet all the sort of regulatory issues that financial institutions would have, and that, you know, companies with good governance or public companies need to meet. And so that's been the big part of, you know, our push towards creating software for not just miners, but more moving out to the masses.
Yeah, and I mean.
And you and I got in that debate about moving to the masses.
Well, yeah. So, and I think in that was just people like it's a big world, and some people don't, especially I don't even want to call it Bitcoin maximalism. I don't even call it the separation of some of the core cypherpunk folks that were really into crypto in the beginning and still are, that are looking at like, you know, screw the government, we're going to do this our own way, libertarian to the core. There's going to be sects of people that are doing that, are going to continue that. But there are also entire, you know, groups of folks that want to participate in some capacity, but they're going to be bound by a different set of rules. Different levels of capital markets have rules. They're stuck on the sidelines.
They can't play.
And it's going to be these different, you know, groups being able to participate or not, and that's effectively what's going on right now with Fidelity and all these other groups trying to get, you know, spot or ETFs, and like it's not a one size fits all. And I've always tried to communicate that with people who are like, you know, why aren't you a Bitcoin maxi? Why aren't you? I'm like, well, because there's different, you know, I don't want to say different strokes for different folks, but I mean,
we've
like
had this debate internally
a
few times about this sort of idea of like, you know, how do we bring optionality? You know, we talk about Petra. And it's like, you can create products that bring in regulatory systems that aren't participating now because of certain things that happen in Bitcoin, without actually jeopardizing at all how Bitcoin operates. And so this idea, like, you know, Bitcoin should only work this way, and this is what we want it to do. You're stuck in this kind of little bubble where, okay, if that's all you want, then Bitcoin's ever only going to achieve this much. You created the boundaries of what it will be. If you can open those boundaries up and say, this is how we can get it to more people by following some rules that they have to follow, then you get to more people. And if you can get to more people, you get more wallets. You get more wallets, you get more buyers. You get more usage, it grows and grows and grows. And at the end of the day, everybody kind of, it doesn't matter where you come from, you want it to be successful, Bitcoin. We all believe in it. So just because you believe it in a certain way doesn't mean somebody else that believes in it can't use it in a different way.
So I think we got a couple more, and then we can wrap this fun up. And I think it's been good. And I do appreciate, like, this is like, I love just open, candid talk about the space. It's healthy. It shows, and I think I've always been a push to try to lead by example on that and let people make sure they feel comfortable when they talk about it. There is no innuendo. It's just, we love the space. We're trying to make sure other people understand it from different perspectives. Because everybody has to run into different type of issues when it comes into like regulatory or just municipalities, locally, or different governments. Even getting here, like with a lot of people are like anti-vax and all this stuff, and like we're vaccinated, we couldn't cross the border without it. We're trying to not get like super political on that kind of stuff. It's like we still want to function. We want to come see you guys. We want to do this stuff. So giving people a perspective that can't do that, and maybe there's all kinds of reasons why people can't get that kind of stuff. We want to be able to bring those kind of stories to it, and I think this kind of conversation kind of lets some folks understand that there isn't we love what we do, and we're trying to expand on that. You guys are doing the same thing. You guys love what you're doing, and you're expanding on it in your way that you see what's fit, and that really sets up. You guys you showed us the phase 1, phase 2. You guys are coming into phase 3. Yeah. That's one of the next questions is like, what's next? Like, what is DMG, if like talking to the world? You already have the plan. That's on the Gantt chart. You're working down it. I've seen it. It's happening. Like, what happens after that? You obviously have more capacity, you have more land, you have more space. Is it that you guys do different rounds of being able to include other new investors? If somebody watches this interview and is like, I'm in, well, how do I contact these guys? How do I help them get to phase 4?
DMGI on the TSXV.
Yeah.
DMGI.
Yeah. So, we were a public company. You can always buy our stock.
Yep.
We're not here to talk about our stock, though. We're here to talk about Bitcoin.
For sure.
Yeah. So, you saw, and you'll put up some more information. The one thing that I wanted to say just about us, and there was a time in crypto where everybody had the secret sauce, and we talked about this.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to show anything, and you had to sign an NDA, and no photos were allowed, and all this kind of stuff. And I went through that as well. Everybody thought we had this, but to be honest, there isn't really a secret sauce so much as there's a recipe to make it. And as you said, some people can make it better than other people. Our goal is, we're letting you see everything. We're not saying you can't photo this, you can't take a picture of that. You can take whatever you want. Actually, you guys went in there without us and did whatever you wanted. We
caught our B-roll. So we followed you through. And then, we walked in there and was able to get the closer shots because, a lot of people don't see the making or how it works, but we came in there with like 4 different cameras. They all kind of have their own specialty. And it's hard if you're in the middle of a tour to like, hey, stop what you're saying midstream and let me pull out this other camera that just collects this a little better and gets the better lighting that's in here. So we went back in there to capture, that's kind of the behind the scenes light and magic stuff to make sure that people can get a better, clearer view, B-roll through it. So,
and so the reason I bring this up is that, I don't compete really with other Bitcoin miners. What we're trying to do is build an industry. And if we can build an industry and we can have a lobby group and we can have a sit at the table when we have issues with government or utilities or the people on ESG, we need to unite. But if we're fragmented and we're not talking to each other and we're not working together, our industry is we've had a hard time. We come out of a cryptic dark past. Everybody started thinking about Bitcoin from Silk Road. We're all drug dealers and bad people doing bad things with Bitcoin. And that's not really what we are. And that's in everything. I try and think of a currency or a mode of transferring value that doesn't have criminal elements to it. Bitcoin, by far over the years has become probably one of the most transparent cryptos that's out there. Everybody's looking at it. And I don't think that's ever going to change. And I think it's going to become more and more transparent over time, good or bad. But our goal with bringing you in, and we give tours all the time to people that ask, not anybody, but people that ask, is to grow the industry. Because if it doesn't grow, we're going to be always that company fighting with our local government or our federal government saying, give us this or give us that, or do you understand this? We're not actual physical hardcore miners, so you don't need the same rules for accounting or public audit or whatever it may be, or stop this narrative about ESG and that we're destroying the world by Bitcoin mining. So we need to grow as an industry, just like the pulp and paper industry, just like the forest industry, just like the aluminum industry, just like any industry out there. They want to have a voice and they want to grow.
And the tours aren't just where it stops at. We do a lot of consultation on other data centers and where we build it out. And it's exactly that. They go, so what are you hiding from us? What do you have that you're not telling us? No, it's not about that. It's about building data centers that mine crypto at top tier levels so that everybody is doing it well and efficiently, because that grows the space and that adds legitimacy.
One slide I used to have in my investor deck was a map of the world. And over it, I overlaid hash rate, so the pools where they're located, and I did the nodes, and the nodes are where people are actually transacting. So like if I'm sending you a Bitcoin, you're sending me one back. The nodes will pick it up around the world. And you had this hash rate sitting over in Asia, and you had these nodes sitting in Europe and North America. So people in Europe and North America are using Bitcoin. They're transacting, moving it around the most. Yet they're not the ones hashing it. Now, their miners might be in North America, but the hash is over there, and that's where the value is being created. And so we've been big proponents, and this is why we want to get in the pool game, to bring the hash rate in line with the nodes of usage. And I think we're getting more successful at that. The things that have happened in China with the Chinese government, nothing to do with us, but I think it's been a very good thing for North America, because what's happening is the hash rate is moving to the people that are using it. So the people that are using it should be the ones that benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing, it will go down in history of like what China did indirectly. I mean, really strengthened and saved years of time for participation in the space. And
Two of the biggest funds wiped out.
yeah, like just the ability. And I think it's going to happen the same thing with some of the altcoin industry as we've seen a lot of hash rate, like on things like Ethereum and other networks, and you're seeing it in China, and they haven't really cracked down too much on that. But if that happens, then you'll see a disbursement on some of these other networks, happen, and then now you have this true option at creating diversity and decentralization, because now it's buyer broker relationships, things moving everywhere. It's not just coming to the U.S. The U.S. is definitely catching up on a heavier participation than some others, just because we move capital quick. We can. There's access to capital.
It's not just America. You're now seeing South America spring up. You're seeing parts of Northern Europe and things like that.
Central America right now.
Central America, Canada. The shift out of China has been a net positive across.
Although I shouldn't say it, Russia.
Yeah.
One of my favorite
Russia,
places.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan.
Well,
Although that tariff on Bitcoin mining.
They're spinning some power down because they had some power issues and concern. But Uzbekistan, I mean, there's a handful of Eastern, bloc countries that have power, that have a lot of industry and infrastructure that's been pulled, that's left like everything else, and they had a lot of extra power there. That's spinning it up, and the rest of the world's participating. And I mean, I think that's a critical piece of it.
But it's a common theme where you're finding this power to spin up Bitcoin. It's underutilized assets. So you have, whether you look at Canada, the U.S., or other parts of the world, you look at Russia, you're looking at pockets of industry that's moved on, but the infrastructure is still there. And that's where Bitcoin miners are going to. And Russia's a great example because they've had great industry in certain areas. The economy's changed on them, and they have these huge dams and aluminium plants that aren't doing what they used to do, or factories that aren't doing what they used to do. And the power's there. It's cheap. It's a great climate, just like Canada. And if you can get over it being Russia, it's not a bad place. I mean, I say that because I worked and lived in Russia for a long time, and I speak Russian, so I always like the Russians as well. But there's a geopolitical stigmatism around it. Great, I guess, good for us in North America, but they have great infrastructure there too. So, and I think that you're going to see this over and over. It's really about where it makes sense to put assets in. And I've said this over and over, is that if you're going to be a Bitcoin miner like us, or bigger ones than us, and you want to be at big scale, you need to look for big power. And when you look for big power, in general, you end up looking for renewable power because it's really the cheapest to make. Dams have the cheapest power.
Yep.
Solar and wind are the cheapest power.
Yeah.
Right?
Water keeps flowing.
Water keeps flowing. Sun comes up every day.
Yes.
Wind keeps blowing.
The consistency.
Geothermal as well, a bit more expensive to build unless it's already there.
Yeah.
But
Volcanoes.
Yeah.
Now volcanoes. Yeah.
So, when you think about it, I always answer the question about the power usage, and I go, look at aluminium. The biggest aluminium places are sitting on hydropower. And you're going to start seeing the biggest Bitcoin miners sitting on or close to hydropower because it just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't have to run it as far, and it's right there. And, you know, also having, I mean, we're kind of going right into like one of the last questions here is having that relationship with the power company and having, trying to align times. That's one of the other things like that definitely was made apparent when we were going out to the substation, right? You could have the building, you could have the racks, you could even have the miners, you could have almost everything in place. But if you're not succinct with what's going on from your power provider and when they can get on their schedule,
if you don't understand what they say when they're talking at you, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
And so they start saying things to you, and you just kind of, you have the deer eyes, and you're like, I want 100 megawatts, and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I want 100 megawatts, and they're like, blah, blah, blah. You're in trouble. So when they start saying harmonics and, you know, this and that, and curtailment and load balancing and, you know, what's this and what's that, your arc curve, your three-phase this and this, and, oh, are you going to be at parity or not? And if you don't know what they're saying, it's a tough conversation.
Oh boy, is our parity good, though.
Our parity's one.
Yeah.
Actually, we should post that.
We also communicate with our utility weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they love us.
Yeah. We've done a few power studies with them. We've shared our power studies with other, you know, utilities out there to better understand like what our load, what does it look like, what's the harmonics. Harmonics is actually quite important. I'll tell you a little story. There was a company. I don't know why you're laughing. I haven't told the story yet.
No, I love this story.
You don't know what I'm going to tell.
I know what story.
I bet you don't. There was a company in Vancouver that was a laundromat, and in the back of the laundromat, this guy had this great idea of putting a bunch of Bitcoin miners in there. So he shoved a whole bunch of S9s in there as much as he could, took as much power as he could. And what happened is he was running and running and running, and one day down the block, 3 or 4 buildings blacked out. And what happened was he was on the same line, and in the harmonics, the miners, with all the other power he was taking, was putting a lot of feedback into the line, and the breaker started going with over and under voltage, jumping up and down.
An oscillation.
Yeah, and so, you know, BC Hydro, you know, figured this out eventually, but it was because, you know, he didn't understand what he was doing, and nobody really looked at it. He didn't talk to anybody. Nobody would really care, but they just want to make sure it's done properly. And so, you know, when you talk about utilities, they're not the bad guys. They just speak a different language. It's like they're talking to a lawyer. They just speak a different language. So once you figure out their language, you can explain what you want to do, and they're not bad guys. You just got to figure their language out, and they'll help you do what you want to do. But you got to take the time and figure out what it is that they're thinking about and what they care about. You know, utilities care about making sure that, you know, there's no blackouts for the community. They don't want people calling them up and saying, why are the lights off? And so as long as you're not part of why the lights went off, you're pretty much okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a public utility, it's a service. And yeah, they're learning too. I mean, I know when we were first scaling up too, and they came out for that first, you know, site visit, and we had equipment ahead of the transformer, and they're like, "What are you trying to do?" You know, you're trying to explain to them, and we're trying to, like, I think they heard the words, but they didn't really grasp the fact that each one of those, and that was GPUs, it wasn't even, you know, at the time, ASICs. And when we started talking the numbers that we were, because I think it's like they hear the words and they're just like, "There's no way." They don't understand
the first time.
that's a lot of power. And then they came in there and we started explaining to them, I'm like, "No, man, this is, you know," at that time it was I think R9 290s, and we were moving into we kind of went through the 390 phase, but we were waiting for the RX 470s and 480s, and we're like, "Hey, these things are going to use, you know, up to 150 watts each," which now we have them down to 88 watts, but a tip to that, bro. But
Can you do
like
that with my S19s?
yes, can I do that? Yeah, right. Drop some power. So, you know, but when you look at that many 2,500 GPUs, and you're like, this is 800K. You know, we're going to be at a megawatt. You know, it's just they have to understand, and then understand the type of load. Like, well, what happens? You're going to be interruptible power. Like, we might have to shut you down, like in the peak summer. And is that going to kill? You know, what do we have to put in place to not fry all this equipment and get you know, a suit from you guys or something? You know, so it was just those kind of early conversations for them to understand. And the more they understand that, the better they can help serve you and maybe give you different options. I mean, now, I mean, talking in the St. Louis area,
that's the language thing. Is like when my first time I went to Fortis, BC, which is the territory we're in now. Not this location, but a different location. I said, I want to put 40 megawatts here for Bitcoin mining. And they were like, okay, we're going to come and see you and see this location. And I was like, all right. So they show up in their trucks, Fortis trucks and all that, and I'm there. And they're like, so what are you smeltering? I'm making Bitcoin. So this isn't like a pulp and paper mill. This is not a smelter. Like, you're not mining and forestry. No, I'm making Bitcoins. Okay, so where are you going to put these Bitcoins? I'm like, let's back up here. I was like, can you put 40 megawatts here? And they're like, we think you're so full of crap. Is this a joke? And that's what it was like a few years ago. Not that many years ago. They just thought it was a joke. Like, unless you're an industrial load making a product that we understand, why are you wasting our time? Now it's changed. Now I've built, lots of megawatts in lots of different places. And, I built quite a few in Alberta before I built in BC. And when I built in Alberta and came to BC to build the mine here, Fortis said, hey, you want 85 megawatt substation? Who are you? What do you want? And I said, well, I built 68 megawatts in Alberta. Maybe talk to ATCO. And they called ATCO, and they're like, who's this Sheldon guy? Did he build all this megawatts? And they said, yeah, he did. And then the next thing I know, I was like, maybe you should come in the office, because the other part of this for a utility is to get load like that for a utility, it doesn't really happen. It's really hard for utilities to get new load, especially significant load. Load for a utility is like a new subdivision going in of 30 houses. Load for us is like 400,000 houses, or something like that, right? That's load for us.
Yeah,
it's like a different world,
it's
right?
It's a city.
And for the utilities,
it's literally a city.
It's curtailable, right?
And
If you stop
so-
a pulp mill midway, it's bad.
Yeah.
But mining, you can't.
Yeah, and so that's the other piece in educating utilities is they think only of firm power. I must deliver this. If I do not deliver this, there are consequences, and I could lose my job, and there's a brownout, and people get mad, and my CEO starts freaking out at us because we're bad engineers. And I say to them, listen, guys, you can curtail us. We only have the opportunity to potentially make money every 10 minutes. And we may or may not make that money. It depends on whether or not the pool we're in wins a block. We could win a block every 10 minutes a few times in a row. It could be 4 hours, 6 hours, 24 hours. Who knows, right? This is Bitcoin. And so if you want to curtail me for an hour, I'm okay. I'm only giving up the opportunity to maybe have made some money, maybe not.
6 times.
Right?
Yeah. 6 times an hour.
But if giving up that power gives me a significant reduction in the cost of my power overall, I'll save so much more money on that lower power rate than what I'll ever make winning a block or two.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that when they start getting this through, because curtailable power is so powerful to them, because they care about ensuring that the grid is balanced and everybody gets power. And if they can take from you and there's no ramification for it, all of a sudden they're your best friend.
Texas would.
We'll end on a real easy, probably non-answerable question, but it's always good to hear something from it. Where do you see Bitcoin mining in the next 10 years?
It just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there is this idea that the perfect table is a flat table.
Yeah.
That there we go.
We got it.
There is this concept, and I think a lot of people in Bitcoin are seeing that the future is not to be grid connected. The future is to be at the origin of power creation on a grid, and that there's a lot of economies of scales that are symbiotic between Bitcoin and power generation. And when we look at what we've built here, we kind of say this is a great operation, but when we look at what we want to build in the future, we're going more to power generation and being right on site behind, what they call behind the meter. And so we're going to help that meter run at 100%. And then when it makes sense, that meter will go out to the network and sell power. And when it doesn't make that much sense, it'll come back and turn us back on. And if you can work together that way, it's very symbiotic. I think everybody wins. The communities win; they get the power they need, but they also get a lower cost because they're running at full operations, which is the cheapest.
Oh,
So
well, you should talk about that with generation and especially cogen and turbine generation. The more load they're running, the cheaper it is.
Yeah. Well, on your answer there, if you were to consider that every large generation of creation, like if it, whatever plant it is, if it had a corresponding, connection to a Bitcoin mine, and now they started popping up around all the potential areas out there, then you would have a space in the world where it would almost be considered critical infrastructure, right? So it'd be like a government's critical infrastructure because it's tied to the hip to bring up the demand to where it's at, lower the cost, and you're getting the full use of it, and then you would see that as measurable from a country's
Totally agree.
rate.
Producing electricity is critical infrastructure.
Correct.
So as a nation, your duty is to produce as much power as you can because that's what people use. People use power. Everything is dependent on power. So not producing as much as you can is, in some ways, you can make the argument of failure.
Well, I would say efficiency of production is quite important.
Yes, you should.
I would say let's not just make power because we can.
Of course.
Let's make usable power, and the idea is that we can make cheap. It can be cheaper and more sustainable with powering up with Bitcoin miners.
Well, I think it's also the evolution that it's not saying that Bitcoin would ever divorce the point of money, or it's very profit and generated focus. But I've always looked at that kind of question as it's complementary to the other series of things that an immutable, most secure network with every country in the world participating in it now foundationally puts in place an area where you can build other stuff on top of it. So if it's the layer 2 networks, with Liquid and Lightning, if you have other ancillary, businesses co-locating particular pieces of information, if it's, deeds and VINs and all this other stuff, right? What we consider the metaverse, it's now coming about. It starts to tweak the purpose to be not just global finance and stuff. It's a foundational network for the world. And that's where I think it gets, I don't think it would ever, even with a high scale, if it was just the money piece, I don't know if they would ever consider it critical infrastructure. If it starts flipping switches and getting V&Vs and all this other ancillary architecture tied around it, now it becomes something more than just money. It is the foundational layer from a protocol level, but now it's also supporting all this other stuff. Now that really becomes critical infrastructure.
Global connectivity layer.
I think you're going to have to conflate this idea of power infrastructure and hash rate, and they have different values. And so Bitcoin working with power infrastructure has a certain value, but also growing the hash rate economy and what hashing does is a new economy that's growing and growing, and the use cases are now coming out more and more. And as for Bitcoin miners, as those use cases come out, we become more and more relevant, not on the software side and the usability side of Bitcoin, but we also become more and more relevant to the power generators and the stability of their operations, and their operations are running very profitably as well. So like I say, it's a very symbiotic. And a lot of people just talk about the power side of Bitcoin because that's kind of been in the media a lot. But there's this whole hash rate economy that not a lot of people are talking about yet, but it's coming. To us, it's already here, but it's coming out and it's becoming more and more transparent. People are really starting to understand what is hash rate and what does it do, why does it have value.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This has been good. We're gonna tip glasses here.
Gentlemen.
Wrap this one up. I don't even know how long this has been. Yeah, cheers.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. All right, guys. Subscribe, follow. We'll share all the
farm over there.
The peanut gallery's doing the thing.
Adrian Glover on Twitter. Not on Twitter.
Not on Twitter.
Yet.
Don't hashtag me or whatever you do.
Blockchain
Yeah.
And at DMGI.
There it is. We'll have them down in the description, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.